our boy Phil Kessel. Nothing is stopping this man from getting his Iron Man streak from continuing. He actually made a point to play a shift in the game. So then the Coyotes had arranged a flight for him to go back home in Arizona so he could be there for the birth of his first child.
That's awesome, man. Like I saw that floating out there that, he went out there, took a quick skate around, did a shift and then hopped off the game, gave fist bumps to all the fans and then went home and was there for the birth of his child. Did I also see that he got an assist on that play as well?
You know what? I totally forgot.
Maybe not. I'm
No,
looking
because
now.
he played
Maybe
just the first shift, and then he was literally first shift. Guys were kind of heckling that he was leaving. He gave fist bumps, and he was right off.
he might have been on the ice, man, because they scored their first goal like a minute into the game. It's very possible that he was on the ice and maybe he's like a +1. I don't even see him on here. What Phil Kessel. They don't even have him on here right now, and I don't know why. Because he only played one shift. So
Yeah, I
they're
was
like,
gonna say
we're
maybe
not
they just he didn't play the minimum to get on the stats sheet tonight, but I mean he was
apparently
there.
not. But yeah, shout out Phil. Attaboy Phil, former Leafs legend. Philly the Thrill Kessel. Yes.
We're now going to focus on our favorite little segment called Cosine No Sign. For those who are unfamiliar with it, Mike and I will each give a little phrase, and we have to decide whether we're going to sign off on it, meaning we agree with it, or we're going to no sign, meaning nah, we don't agree with it. So I will go first for the first one because we kind of did touch on it a little bit earlier in the podcast. It's been a bit of a theme the last few days with the Leafs. Um, maybe after this game it might not be as much, but I was thinking that this is the time for Eli Labushkin to get a little bit of time with Morgan Riley.
Why?
I
Like,
already know.
cosign, absolutely cosign. And all I have to say is refer to yesterday's podcast for the answer. Of course, yes, 1000% cosign. I want to see it. We talked about it today. Timothy Liljegren, didn't look spectacular. Then there was a couple of times tonight where you're just kind of wincing a little bit. Yeah, another ill-timed penalty that he took tonight for the second game in a row, and I just think that when this team is like, I just yes, cosign. I want to see Ilya Labushkin play up there. He's a shot suppressor. I think he and Morgan Riley would work out really well. He can play with top pairing guys, with superstar players, guys who can move the puck. And if he's just going to be out there being an enforcer, going around, hitting people, making sure that he boxes guys out, don't allow those second, third chance opportunities, especially considering how rebound friendly it seems like Campbell and Mrazek have been lately. Yeah, I would like him out there on the top pair against some of those top players who battle in front of the net, have him out there battling as well alongside Morgan Riley. Cosign.
Beautiful. So, Mike, what do you have as your first cosine no sign?
All right, cosign, no sign, Dave. First one for you here. Auston Matthews, hat trick tonight. Shout out. Currently leading the NHL with 43 goals. Cosign, no sign. Auston Matthews hits 60 this season.
Ooh. I had a conversation with a group of friends of mine. We have a little chat group there. And I think it was he needed. Actually, I'm going to pull that up because they did the math for me. Because this is the important part here where you kind of have to see, is it feasible for him? He's at 43. So we know he needs 17. And I think 25 games.
Yeah,
How can we not think that after he's scoring 36 in his last 37?
right. Right.
So I mean, if you're not signing this, you have Auston Matthews will be like, "I find your lack of faith disturbing."
Yes. Yeah. I think he'll score 17, 25. Um, there could be some sort of regression that factors in here at some point, I suppose. But for a while, I was saying, no, he could come close. He could come close. But all he does is keep scoring. And he's scoring multiple goals in a game. This is his 12th multi-goal game of the year, which ties Rick 5 for, I think, third most in a season. He's done it 14 and 15 times as well. And I reckon by the end of the year, he'll also have that record along with Rick Vive's single season goal scoring record as well, Mr. David Morassutti.
I thought he was going to do it last year before the pandemic.
Oh,
Or
2 years ago. Yeah.
2 years ago when the
Yeah.
pandemic shortened the season. He
Yeah.
was he was I think what he had 47 goals that year.
He was on pace last season too for 65 in a full 82 game season, on pace for 65 goals. So he would have passed it last year too. But obviously we know that he did not. He had what 40
I
40
think
some
it
odd
was
goals last season as well in roughly the same amount of games. It's like
like
this is what he is.
yeah, this isn't like if people are thinking that Auston Matthews is somehow finding his like just recently finding a stride. No, the stride's always been there. It's just a pandemic has gone his way. Injuries, well, not even injuries because his last 2 years he's been relatively healthy, minus him missing a few games to start the year. And imagine
Mhm.
if he didn't miss those games to start the year. Like, I think that's the difference between him being closer to 50 at this point.
Remember when the power play couldn't score? Remember when he couldn't score at 5-on-5? Like somehow there were still pockets and stretches where we were like, "Oh, this guy's not scoring enough." And now here you look at it, it's like actually he's doing fine. He scored 36 in his last 37 games. All good. If it took him a couple of weeks to get it going, all good. Yeah, he's unbelievable. Your next one.
All right, so my next one here is with Jason Spezza being the guy out tonight. I think now we're gonna really start to see a healthy rotation of guys going in and out of the lineup more so than we did before. Because before we saw Jason Spezza, Wayne Simmons, and whoever that other person was on the fourth line. But
Yeah,
Jason Spezza and
Kasha.
Wayne Simmons were the two that were like the constant,
Right.
always playing. I think now that you have Kerfoot in the mix, Kasha, I think because Nick Robertson has kind of given a good chance to stay on that second line, you're going to start seeing a little more rotation on that fourth line there. Cosign or no
Oh,
sign.
rotation as in like we're gonna see guys not play.
So,
Like
like,
we'll see
yeah,
more healthy scratches from Spezza, from Wayne Simmons, and like that.
yeah, like an Andre Kasha might come out because of the injuries, and they're gonna make sure that
Interesting.
that fourth line is static. It's not gonna be a fixed fourth line.
Interesting. You know what? I'm gonna co-sign it. I'm gonna co-sign it for two reasons. One, I think you look at Wayne Simmons and you look at Jason Spezza. They're a little bit up there in their career, and you want to keep them as fresh as possible. Two, there is a lot of hockey games that are going to be played in not many days, basically every other night. So there's not much time to get that rest. And for guys like that, I think they need it. And then you brought up the Andre Kasha part, and yeah, maybe it is smart and strategic to give him a couple of nights off here and there and give him an opportunity to get a breather. So yeah, I could see there being a bit of a rotation. Plus the fact that now with Nick Robertson in the fold, you got a little bit of depth, and you're going to have somebody in the press box, who you are going to want to get some games and get some playing time. And I could see a little bit of a rotation kind of forming there, and they could even still add to that depth that they have right now. I don't know about you, but I actually like low key liked the makeup of that fourth line on paper tonight. Kerfoot, Kasha, and Wayne Simmons. Like that's just those three guys on a fourth line just kind of speaks to how deep this team can actually be,
Yeah,
right? Yeah.
like Kerfoot and Kasha at one point were second line players,
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
and now they're on the fourth line.
All right. Mine kind of can go hand in hand with your question though, which could ultimately change the perception of what the answer could have been in the previous question.
Okay,
One of Alex Kerfoot or Nick Robertson will be dealt at the deadline.
I'm gonna sign that because I think with the need to make the salaries work, I think there's a better chance that Kerfoot can get moved if they believe that Nick Robertson is ready for full time duty. Because some people are just like, you can trade Robertson in a package. And I'm like, But if you can move Kerfoot's deal, it will make the money work so much better in terms of when you bring in a guy in.
And next year,
Yeah.
moving out that $3.5 million on next year's cap as well, knowing that there are, a couple of contracts that are going to have to be negotiated this summer that are going to be tough to get to that cap number. Yeah.
Because people keep saying, they're gonna might have to find another Michael Bunting like player to bring in and insert into the lineup. Maybe Nick Robertson is that Michael
Yeah,
Bunting type player because he is not
on an
being paid a
ELC.
lot of money.
Right.
So I think this is what the Leafs are. I think this was all kind of Kyle Dubas's work in trying to figure out which guys on ELC deals, manageable contracts can we get into this lineup and move out, kind of trim the fat, as I would say. I think that Kerfoot, while I like the player, I mean, given what he did in the playoffs last year, at times he's been really good. 3.5 million, and the fact he doesn't really have a defined role right now, that kind of that means I think that he'd be a guy that can be on the move. And I think teams will still like to have a guy like that.
Yeah, my only counter to that, not to say that I don't think it's going to happen, because I think he is a valuable trade chip that the Maple Leafs could use if they go out and get a big salary player. But the only counter to that is it seems like the coaching staff and management do really like him, and they like his versatility and the fact that he's a Swiss Army knife that can play up and down the lineup. You can stick him on PP2. He kills penalties. He can really do whatever you want, and he's also seems to be a really well liked guy in the locker room. You listen to post game when that second line was in a funk and Kerfoot was getting a little bit of sludge thrown at him. Like, they came to his defense and they're like, he's an awesome guy. Like, he's an amazing upbeat person. He's a very smart individual, a Harvard graduate. So that's the only thing. Like, do they want to trade away? Like, they kind of want to build for depth. Do they want to trade it away? Is the only pushback I guess I would have on that. But yeah, I think it's certainly possible that if they do try and make a sizable deal where you need to have money coming in, coming out, especially if it sounds like Jake Muzzin, who was skating today, by the way, which is a positive sign. Looks like he might be returning before the season's end, which means that LTIR space isn't there. So that may need to be a dollar in, dollar out type of trade at the deadline. And Kerfoot's probably at the top of the list for guys who are, I don't want to use the word expendable, but guys who maybe the Maple Leafs wouldn't mind moving in a deal, I suppose, if you have something else of value coming back. Third one. You go. You want to go first or me go first?
I'll go first because this might be a short one because you've already kind of touched on them earlier.
Okay.
I think David Kampf earned some Selke votes. We talked about Matthews potentially and Marner, but I think David Kampf, you talked about that third line. He's
Yeah.
putting it on the penalty kill and at 5-on-5.
Like,
I don't think he's going to win
I'm
this.
gonna no sign it. I'm gonna no sign it. I'm gonna no sign it. I think he's done a terrific job in this role, but has he done well enough to garner votes from outside of the market? You know what I mean? Like, there's just so much love going to Matthews in the Selke conversation at this point with his two-way play. Mitch Marner gets a lot of Selke consideration for his two-way play. I don't think that people will even think about putting David Kampf on a ballot. He's played well. Don't get me wrong. He's an incredibly reliable player in his own end, and he's a prototypical defensive forward. But at the end of the day, he's the third line guy who still only gets 14, 15 minutes, plays on the PK. I just don't think that he'll end up on many ballots here and will be considered a strong candidate, I would say. So I'm going to no sign it.
All right, no problem. So what's your to wrap things up, what's your final cosign no sign?
All right, final one here for you. It's a bit of a spicy bomb right here. You ready?
All right.
One of Jack Campbell or Peter Mrazek will get a shutout before the season is over.
Ooh. Wow. That is
Doesn't mean that they won't give up 5 or 6 goals every game, but there'll be that one night where they're just on it and they get that donut. What do you think?
I just think at some point one of them is going to have one of those nights. It's going to probably be. I'm more inclined to give it to Jack Campbell because I feel like his style of play gives me more confidence that he can get that shutout. I don't. It's tough because the way they're playing right now, but I feel like if there is a guy, it's going to be him. So I'm gonna sign it because at some point one of them is gonna have one of those games. It's going to happen. They're gonna be in the zone. I don't know when it's gonna happen. At some point it will happen, but I do think it can happen. Yes, so I'm gonna sign that.
All right. All right. You have slight faith that there will be one night where they'll just be on it. They'll be on it. All right. I like it, Dave. I like the optimism. You're feeling good on a Wednesday.
Yeah, Optimism Wednesday. We're all here for that. All right, Mike. Well, I want to thank you again. And I thank everybody for sticking around as long as they did. So they'll do it today on the podcast. Make sure you go and support the show by subscribing wherever you get your podcast. Make sure you are subscribed to our YouTube channel. We're trying to reach that 500 so we can give away some swag to our Leafs faithful. Make sure you go on Twitter, follow myself, D_Morassutti, and follow Mike at Mickey_Canuck, and follow the show at Locked On Leafs. We'll be back tomorrow with another episode where we are going to preview the game against the Coyotes and a little bit more. Hey, maybe we'll have some news to talk about.
The red hot Arizona Coyotes,
Oh boy.
that is.
No team that they can. Hey, maybe because they're playing well, the Leafs won't take them lightly. Although we can't really say that for sure because it's kind of gone both ways for the Leafs lately. But until then, keep it locked on here on Locked On Leafs.